Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is part two of Making Peace with Trials. If you're joining me live, I don't mind. I'm just finishing. I'm just coming from my workout. I went for a run outside. It was kind of cool. So I'm wearing this sweater, and my hair is post-run status. Um, and I and I'm glad to be here. You know what? I actually am thinking like I was chatting with a family member during my run, and I was thinking I could like do my lives. I could just connect with community during my exercise. Why not? Doesn't matter really what we're doing or where or what we look like or how just connect. It's so fun. It's so good. So hope you're having a wonderful week. And if you didn't see part one of Making Peace with Trials, check that out. I introduce the concept of trial, offer a new perspective on it, and um, and I'm just going to share a few quick points from that before I go into to today's content. Part two content is elaborate on this even more. I'm going to share just a little bit of like two examples from what I've been experiencing recently, and how that relates to trial and some of the tools I'm going to be sharing. So these two examples, and then I'll talk about three tools. Three tools I've been using um, that we can kind of explore together. So here's the summary. Here's a few key points you got to make sure you know about making peace with trials before I jump into my example. So we talked about how the definition of a trial is it is a trial is a test of faith or patience. So this is the common definition, and the way that people typically interpret this or experience trial is I must endure a challenging thing. I'm just going to and what it means is I'm just going to be heavy, it's going to be hard, I might be miserable, and I just have to hang on. And um, what I offered is that this test of faith or patience is not a test to endure while being miserable. What if it was, what if a trial offers, gives, presents itself to us as a test to exercise faith that allows us to alleviate the challenge, alleviate the weight, not alleviate the challenge. The challenge, the circumstance will be the same. We'll have the same circumstance, perhaps, right? But maybe the test is can we practice faith and patience so that, we might be weighed down, we might have emotional difficulty in the circumstance temporarily, but with faith and patience, we'll return to light despite the circumstance. The circumstance might stay the same, but we'll return to peace, right? And that is the test. Can we get to peace amidst the turmoil? Take on that challenge. Take on that test. Um, Another thing that I shared is that the the trial this is a circumstance that gives us the opportunity to more deeply understand our power. And I elaborated on that, talked all about power and such wonderful things to talk about and to consider, and all things that I've been experiencing and seeing in practice in my life. Um, and then finally, I talked about one line of thinking that won't help when experiencing trial, and that is this thought: I hate this. So I elaborated on that and talked about why we maybe get into that pattern and why we think it might be serving us, why perhaps it shows up, what do we do when it shows up, and um, more on that. So for more on all those things, check out part one. And that also provides the foundation that we're going to build on for part two. So there's two examples I want to share. One is recently my 9-year-old son tried out for a club basketball team. And he's super excited. Like he over the past, I don't know, year. It's probably been about a year now. He's kind of got obsessed with basketball, and he loves watching it. And we have a basketball hoop in our yard, and he plays. He just loves playing basketball. And a year ago, he could hardly like hold a basketball. He was so uncomfortable with it. He wasn't coordinated to dribble. He couldn't dribble. He couldn't catch the ball if you bounced it to him or threw it to him. And I've watched over the past year how he has developed those skills and become so comfortable with the basketball. And that's just been really cool to see. Um, and throughout that experience, he also, we got him signed up for this training at this club. And it was just a summer training over the past few months. And at the end of that training, of course, they give everyone the opportunity to try out for a team. And so my son Rudy was like, thrilled to try out. He's like, "Oh, I want to try out. I want to get on the team. I'm just so excited." And we've been talking about this for months, the tryouts and what that experience might be, and how cool it'd be if he gets on a team, um, and just dreaming about that. He's just constantly dreaming, and you know me, I love dreaming. Like, let's dream. Let's dream all day and all night. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Unless, of course, you start using it against yourself. Anyway, so tryouts come, and um, he goes and tries out, and he's alongside other boys who've been playing club basketball. They've been playing for more than a year, and Rudy, my son, has only been playing for about a year, and it's been kind of with me and himself in his backyard at the hoop, and he hasn't really had much skill training and experience. While these other players that were trying out, they have. They've been on teams, competitive teams. They've been on competitive teams. They've had skill training, and this was pretty apparent to my son at the tryouts. He came. There were two evenings, and he would come home just being like, "Dad, I was the worst one out there, and I'm not as good as they are." And it went through all this emotion, and so I'm telling some of this backstory on it because of just to give you some context of really the main point. Um, so the context is what I've shared, and the reason why I'm sharing is just to kind of paint the picture of like the significance of this and the emotion that was behind all of this experience, and many conversations I had with him and my wife had with him, and help him just work through this, and being so proud as a parent that he like went through that tryout experience. He felt the negative emotion and discouragement, and he stuck it out. He went out and he kept going at it. He kept doing all the things for the tryout. And then we just waited. The coaches said, in about a week we'll have team information posted. If your child made the team, you'll see him on the list. And so then we have that waiting period, and there's all this emotion and conversation. And again, oh, and I think I shared with you. You can see one of my previous uh, uh, modules about chances. Um, how good are your chances? And my son and I had those conversations at that time. Like he's like, based on how I did at my tryouts, now how good do you think my chances are that I'm gonna make it? And of course, we just talked all day, every day while we were waiting about how good your chances might be. Like your chances are good. Let's believe that. Like of course they are. You showed up, you went out there, you saw that you maybe don't have the same skill as others, but are your chances still good? Yeah, I think so. I think so. We don't know for sure. We have no idea. But we're just gonna believe they're good. Because it feels good to think that. um, anyway, the list gets posted, and he's on it. And we celebrated it. We surprised him the next morning. We wrote this fun little note that says Club V's, that's the name of the club. Club V's newest team member, Rudy Chandler, and we're all like, "Oh, that's amazing." And so excited and celebrate. And this dream kind of come true for my 9-year-old son. And so we enjoy that, and just only 2 days, let's see, yeah, 2 or 3 days later, the coaches email us and say, for this particular team, um, we had a small number of boys. We had six, right? Six on this team. We need five to play. Two of them backed out. So now we have only four team members. This will not be enough for a team. We're very sorry. We're gonna do like if you know of anyone who might want to play basketball that's the same age, let us know. Otherwise, this might not work out. And so then we had that experience. Okay, so that's what I'm going to define now as a trial, right? We have this trial. I mean, they could have said that the tryouts were a trial and all that, but I want to focus on just that experience as a trial that we faced. Because we had celebrated, we had all this emotion, and we're so excited, and this kind of this dream come true for my son, and then, ah, wait, what? That's it? The coaches just said, sorry, two backed out. Are they going to put him on a different team? No, we checked that with that. They're just like, no, there's not a different team we can add him to. Either we need to find a few other players for this team that he was placed on, or he won't be playing club basketball for us. Um, so that's the trial, and uh, so we did take some action. We referred a few friends and made some phone calls, and because we were motivated to try and make this happen. But then we waited for another I think it was like 2 weeks, and didn't know if this was going to happen. Didn't know if the people we referred really were going to. Number one, did they have a son who um, would meet kind of the qualifications or the skill level that the coaches expected for this club team? And actually, that would be number two. The number one, are they interested? Are they really interested? Number two, will the coaches um, take them? So we didn't know any of that. And during this time, during this 2 week period, um, our emotions are all over the place. We're just like, "Ugh, man, is he going to be on this team or not? Do we need to find a different team, or there's there's not any other clubs that are actually close enough to us geographically that we'd like to pursue. But we can go back to like rec ball, like recreation ball, which is great, right? That's all I did as a kid. But Rudy was so excited about club ball. He was just so excited about this, and for so many reasons. And anyway, so we just were trying to figure out what to do about that, and also how to manage our own selves. And then our son, who was also like, is this gonna work out or no? And we're in this 2 week period of this trial, and um and trials are relative, right? I share this trial, and you might be like, what? So that's number one. That's one thing I always want to acknowledge and talk about is that um trials are relative, but it doesn't feel like it. Whatever you define as a trial is real and, by the way, valid, right? Whatever you um perceive, whatever circumstance comes into your life that feels like a test, right? This is like, this is testing. This is testing me. This is emotionally difficult for me. Then we're going to go ahead and say that's a perfectly valid trial. And what might test you might not test me. But what might test me might not test you. And so that's one of the fascinating things about trials is that sometimes if we're just so focused on ourselves, we think that like our trial just is a trial that would be a trial for anyone and everyone because it has like this inherent trialness. But there isn't such thing as inherent trial. There are circumstances, there are things that happen in our lives, around our lives, and based on our stories, based on our patterns of thought, that thing might be a trial for us. Okay? Um, all right. So, during this trial, this time that we felt really sad. We were just really sad and a bit um I think confused. We also was dealing with the confusion, like what to do next, like how long are we gonna have to wait? We asked the coaches, they're like, we're gonna keep working on it. We don't know, and we're like, well, when will we know? And do we need to really pursue something else for our son? We really just want him to play basketball and be excited about it, and because he wanted it so badly. So this was the test. Do I practice faith in this scenario to just hang on, to be sad and confused until the answer comes? Is that the faith that I'm practicing? Well, what I'm suggesting is the answer to that question is no. This is not a test of my faith to just see how long I can hang on to misery, how long I can bear this difficult, miserable waiting period. The test that this circumstance is offering me is whether I can get to peace while we're waiting for the answer from the coaches. The test of faith is, can I make peace with this? Can I not have this circumstance change and be less sad, be less confused, be less disappointed? Um, I'll get to the tools. I have 3 tools, and then these tools will address this about what to do. One thing I just want to say before I move on, though, is again, what I'm not suggesting is that we don't ever feel sad. I think that is what it means to be human. We can feel sad. Let the sadness come. And acknowledge that the sadness is coming from your thinking about the thing. It's not coming from the thing itself. What that means is that you can feel sad. You have some influence over your own sadness, right? You have influence over that emotion. Maybe not immediately. You'll have a reaction. It's like what I also mentioned this and talked about this in part 1. We have these unintentional thoughts. They come and they create the emotion. And when that comes, and that's part of one of my first tools, you just process that. You experience the emotion. And the trial, this circumstance that creates that reaction of sadness or confusion or disappointment or discouragement or whatever it is for you, that's also a beautiful thing, because that reaction, that emotion, allows you to demonstrate your power to experience that emotion. The emotion is not dangerous. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong if you experience it. So trials give us the opportunity to more deeply understand our power to process an emotion. All right. Okay. I have another example, but I'm more than 15 minutes here, and so I'm not going to elaborate on the next example much. I'm just going to just share with you kind of generally what it is. I'm not going to tell the story though. But the other example, and one that you might be dealing with too, is of course physical limitation. And so I was going to elaborate a bit more on my rheumatoid arthritis and fatigue. I'm not going to go into that in great detail right now. I do in some. I mean, you might be tired of hearing it. I talk about it all the time, but this is similar. Um, I I shared before is the chances content. How good are your chances? And or believing in your chances, I think is what I called it. I talked about the chances that I, with rheumatoid arthritis, um, will live the average, um, the expected life of a male, right? Um, and if I look at life expectancy, the average is like, I don't know, I think remember is around 75 for a male. And if you have rheumatoid arthritis that's uncontrolled, that life expectancy says 65. And my point in that at that time and now, again, it's like, why would I ever want to focus on that or believe that? It's just useless. And so a trial that I'm facing with having rheumatoid arthritis is those kinds of stats and these kinds of risks. Um, the other thing that I see is like when I'm taking disease modifying medications, which I've been taking for over 15 years, all the risks and side effects that come along with that. Short term challenges I'm facing, but then also long term challenges. Like people I see in forums are talking about the risk of cancer that comes from being on some of these disease modifying medications, um, or different cardiovascular health challenges or other things. It's like you name it, any of it. We can just talk about all of it. And so, given that circumstance, like you could say some of these things might be facts. Like there might be studies. There are studies that show that life expectancy is lower and that the risk of cancer is higher. Whatever it is, I don't want to actually create any idea of what all these facts are. I haven't like spent a whole lot of time in that research and study, so I don't know I don't know precisely what the facts are, but the reason I don't know is because how helpful is that fact? How useful is it for me to go do a bunch of research and understand all the studies that might prove that I'm going to die 10 years earlier than what's expected? What is the point? And if I got afraid of that, so in this circumstance, I can live in fear, I can live in turmoil, right? Anything but peace. I would just be constantly living in a state of like worry, sadness, discouragement, fear about all these things that might happen in the short term or in the long term in my life because of my rheumatoid arthritis. But the so is this again, is this circumstance a trial to test how long I'm able just to hang on? No. I would suggest it's a test to determine how good I can get to peace while in the circumstance. How much I can improve that skill, that capability, that power that I have to make peace with the situation, to make peace with the possible fact that I could die earlier than expected, or that I could end up having cancer, or I could end up whatever. All these things, I'm like, I'm just going to accept that any of these terrible things could be true. I don't know for sure. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing the research. I'm going to practice my skills of getting to peace, of alleviating heaviness, of alleviating anxiety around any of that, fear. I'm going to practice faith in the power I have to get to peace, the power I have to create the emotion I want to create the energy I want to have in my life right now. All right. So, the three tools, I'm going to share them briefly. If you'd like to get an elaborated version and some more notes on these, there's a link that says more content. Click on that link. You can enter your email address. I will be emailing more content around this topic. So do that this week, and you'll get it. Okay. If you're listening to this after this week, you can still add yourself by clicking more content, and you'll get more content on a continuous basis on everything that all the things that I'm experiencing or talking about. So the three tools. One, feeling disappointed or sad. So in this story that I shared, and this is what I mentioned when I shared the story about my son's tryouts, I'm like, we might have this reaction, we might have this emotion, and we don't. What I'm not suggesting is that, again, that we don't ever experience negative emotion. Like, no, 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 no. No, we do, and it's perfectly fine to. And what the trials allow us to demonstrate is our ability, our power, and the safety in experiencing any emotion. So the first tool is feeling bad. Is that weird? Uh, that's a tool? Yes, it's a tool. Allowing the negative emotion. Okay, the second tool. Um, creating conviction in yourself. Creating conviction about the truth that circumstances are powerless over our emotional experience. Circumstances are neutral. That's what I shared earlier about the relativity of trials. What might be a trial to me might not be a trial to you, might not be a trial to someone else, a trial to them might not be a trial to me. What that demonstrates is that the a trial is a test that is defined by us, that is experienced based on our habit of thinking. It's not inherent in the circumstance itself. The thing happening in our life is simply a circumstance that is neutral. It does not have power over your emotional experience. I can say so much more on that, but I'm going to move on. I'll include that in my notes that I'll share over email. The third tool is then connecting with who I want to be and how I want to feel. Knowing that the second tool is true, that circumstances are neutral, then we can more powerfully utilize this third tool about connecting with who you want to be or how you want to feel. Um, I'm going to pause there. We're going to wrap up. Um, Again, what doesn't help in trial is the thought, I hate this, or this is so stupid, or why did this have to happen to me? All that does is create more of the negativity that is probably not very useful to you. Um, and so here it is, there it is. Let me know what you think about making peace with trials, the whole concept of a test of our skill, a test of our faith to get to peace despite the turmoil. Get to peace amidst turmoil, get to peace while in the circumstance that is a trial for you. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll connect next time.